Hi, this is Debbie, and today I'm taking a look at the new Yo-Ho-Ho set, illustrated by Elena Rizakis from Neat and Tangled. The new release will go live this Friday, March the 10th. There's more information on my coordinating blog post, and you'll find a link to that in the video description. When I get a new set, I like to cut apart all the coordinating dies with tin snips, and then work out which dies go with which image. As I wasn't totally sure how many of the stamps I wanted to use, I laid out as many as I could on a piece of card in the Mini Misty, and then stamped them all at once using intense black ink from Simon Says Stamp. I stamped them a second time to make sure I had a good solid black outline, and then it was time for the colouring. I'm going to speed the colouring up as I want to share with you my first look at the new Distress Oxide inks later on in this video too. Having all the images laid out like this meant that it was easy to dot around the card using the same colours on multiple images. It also helps to balance the colours a little, as it's a good idea not to have too many colours competing with each other. So for each colour I used, I tried to find at least one or two other places to use it. So for example, the green of the girl pirate's dress also makes an appearance in the hills on the map, and the blue of the stripes of the boy's pirate appear on the cat's hat, the girl's tights, and also the sea of the map. I stick to a simple Copic colouring technique using a few markers within the same colourway. I usually start at the lightest and lay down colour in the areas where shadows would naturally fall, and then build up the depth of colour before blending back through the shades to the lightest colour again. On small areas I may jump straight into the darkest colour if there isn't a lot of space for blending. Also, it's very easy to oversaturate small areas and have the marker bleed out into the neighbouring areas. I'm going to play some music while I continue to colour with the Copic markers. Towards the end of the colouring, I bring in some Copic Spicker pens for lots of sparkle on items that are metal, such as the telescope, sword and hook. I also add a few highlights with a white gel pen. With the colouring now complete, I lined up the matching dies and kept them in place with washi before running them through my die cutting machine. I'm going to put those to one side now while I get nice and inky with my first look at the new Distress Oxide inks. I'm starting with a broken china Distress Oxide and a piece of nearly solar white card. I've also got 2 Ranger Mini Misters, one with water and one with a solution of Perfect Pearls. I watched Jennifer Maguire's video review of these inks. I highly recommend you check that out, and I'll leave a link in the video description. I'm laying down some of the ink on the old square of Ranger craft mat I have. I find having a piece this size is so much handier to grab than unrolling a larger sheet. I've then spritzed the ink with water and then laying the card into the wet ink. Although I've seen some beautiful backgrounds mixing different colours, I wanted to stick to just the blue, which would represent my sky or sea in the finished card. I'm going to speed the video up again in a second, as it did take a little while to get the finished inky background. I repeat the same process throughout though, which is dip the card into the ink, dry it off with a heat tool for a bit, then spritz with water or splash with water droplets onto the card, then dry some more, dip again, dry, spritz, splatter, and all the time watching the layers of colour develop. I must admit I'm quite smitten with the result I got with the Distress Oxide inks. It gives a very similar type of background to my favourite watercolour ones, where layers of colour add interest to the finished piece. Once I finish with the broken china Distress ink for my sky, I then move on to fossilised amber to create a sandy island effect. I'll play some music again while I continue to get very inky and messy, but I did want you to see as much of the process as possible, and speeding the video up allows that without the video becoming too long. Finally, I'm left with 2 lovely layered colour backgrounds ready to create my pirate scene. I used an A2 card-cut edge die from Sensor Stamp to cut my sandy island shape, and then trimmed down both the island and the sky background to 5 by 3.5 inches. I've planned out which of the images I coloured I wanted to use, which was all but the toy boat, which I couldn't quite squeeze in, and then I picked a sentiment from the stamp set which would snuggle nicely in the top corner. I stamped the sentiment in lipstick red ink from Sensor Stamp, and then die cut with a basic banner die. I've added foam adhesive to the back of all the elements, and then it's simply a case of adhering them in place on a white top folding card base I cut to be just slightly larger than the background piece. I trim the banner flush with the background, and then that completes this colourful fun pirate card using the new Neat and Tangled Yo-Ho-Ho set. I love the cute characters and also the fun Distress Oxide ink background. I'll leave links in the YouTube description below to the products that I've used today, as well as a link to the coordinating blog post over at limedoodledesign.com. I want to thank you for joining me today, and if you've enjoyed this tutorial, I'd be delighted if you'd subscribe to this channel. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.